Hello and welcome to this edition of the Wards Intelligence 6-Minute Webinars. I'm Haig Stoddard, Senior Industry Analyst Markets for Wards Intelligence, and today I'll be looking at the second half outlook for global demand in 2020 in comparison with the rise in cases of the COVID-19 virus. After starting to dip in the first quarter as the impact of the pandemic began taking hold, global sales cratered in the second quarter, falling 25% year over year, or put another way, as shown in this chart, equal to 65% of the same period in 2019. And just as a note, when I am making comparisons to pre-COVID-19 levels in this presentation, I will be referring to 2019 sales volumes. So although sales globally are not expected to return to 2019 levels for more than 2 years, they are expected to be topping 90% of pre-pandemic volumes by the end of 2020. The chart here is showing global sales by month as a percent of the same volume in 2019, compared with the number of new COVID-19 cases reported daily in the form of a 7-day moving average. Sales in June did nothing to disrupt the trajectory back to the 90% plus of pre-pandemic totals we're expecting in the fourth quarter. And with the easing of restrictions in several countries, including some major markets where the virus appears contained, although I put emphasis on the word appears, sales still are expected to continue the gradual improvement forecast through the end of the year. However, the surge in new cases, which so far is continuing unabated into July, increases the risk that sales will not get to 90% of pre-COVID-19 levels by the end of the year. Right now, there are some big markets that have contained the virus fairly well compared to others, and demand in some of them is roaring back, and in some cases actually surpassing 2019 levels. The best examples for that are in the Asia Pacific region, dominated by the biggest global market, China, which has become the #1 engine for worldwide growth. Similar examples in the Asia Pacific region, although these two are not the bulwark that China is, are South Korea and Australia, which also were able to quickly stop spread of the virus compared with most other countries, and are helping push the upward movement in global demand. Although the recent spike in new cases in Australia, and there are other countries with a similar scenario occurring, is a reminder not to get too optimistic about any market, no matter how quickly it appeared to get to containment of the virus. Not all countries that so far have brought the virus under control relatively quickly are seeing demand trend back as fast as the previous examples, but most of them, like Germany and France and Europe, so far are not a drag on sequential growth and present good upside opportunity in the second half. In fact, France and Germany are largely representative of what's happening in Europe, though as in all regions, including the Asia Pacific that I just went through, there are some doing better at curtailing the virus, with Spain being a good example of that in Europe, and some doing worse. Shifting away from the more optimistic outlooks among the major new vehicle markets, in North America, cases in Mexico are rising steadily, seemingly without stop, but an even bigger potential headwind to global volume is the rise in cases in the US, the second biggest market, which could cause a halt or even worse to sequential growth there. Just to round out North America, although I'm not showing it here in a graph, Canada is following more of the trend of Germany and France. It has greatly dropped its new case count, and sales are rising faster than most countries after they bottomed out there in April. But there are still some worse examples. Some markets have long-standing rises in new cases that they have yet to curtail and are already a drag on global growth, with not much chance for significant improvement in the second half. Brazil, which possibly is hitting a peak in new cases, and India, where cases appear to be out of control, are presenting huge headwinds to demand in their regions. Finally, to summarize, although it's probably going to be more like a warning, a big fear earlier on was that developed economies would get a handle on the containment of the virus, while at the same time the cases would get out of control in less developed countries, which still could happen. But looking at the world by dividing it between the big new vehicle markets and the smaller markets, the number of new cases in the top 15, which largely reflect developed economies and account for roughly 80% of new vehicle sales worldwide, and all the countries I mentioned so far are in that top 15, have reaccelerated compared to all other countries combined, which total 201 based on a count by the World Health Organization. From an humanitarian point of view, that's not good, but it also casts a big shadow over the second half outlook for global demand. That ends this version of the Wards Intelligence 6-minute webinars. To make sure you don't miss any other content in our Summer Festival of Automotive, click on the link below, and we'll see you soon.